Hi everyone, my name is Jayne Marquis and I'm a New Earth Faculty University member, and today I'm going to talk about something I'm very passionate about, and that is homeopathy. But the reason that I'm very excited about it is that it also involves subconscious mind and the healing that comes from the learning that happens when you listen to your subconscious mind and heal at that level. So I thought that I would first start out by sharing my personal history and story of why I resonate with homeopathy and the subconscious mind. And then I would talk about homeopathy and what it is. And then finally give a few examples and also talk about the subconscious mind. So let's see, my story began when I was very young. Probably by the age of 13, I was meditating and connecting to my higher self. And I always knew that there was something greater than what we appear to be as flesh and blood. And I wanted to tap into that. I wanted to tap into all the information that was available to us and to my higher self that I knew was all-knowing. So at the age of 13, I started to meditate and tap into that. And I was fortunate that my mother was very much into natural healing, and she had a lot of really interesting books around. So I could read to my heart's content and, discover things at a very young age. But one book that really influenced me was a book by Barbara Brennan. She was a NASA scientist, and she could see auras from a very young age. And she could see when people were sick that disease was not just in the physical. I mean, it expressed in the physical. But she would draw, drawings of what was going on in the more subtle bodies, the aura, the energy fields of the person. And you could see dark matter, in their energetic field, and depending on how it manifested in the physical and what thoughts they were creating. So this made a lot of sense to me, understanding that we were more than flesh and blood, and I resonated with that. So a few years later, I decided to study naturopathic medicine, and that's a big degree. It's 4 years of learning, mostly what a doctor would learn. But what we do is teach, or we learn how to treat individuals with natural medicines, which it's a beautiful degree. And there's many great naturopathic doctors, and they believe in doing no harm and finding the root cause of what's going on. And then treating that with something that's natural in the world so it can do no harm. And so this was a beautiful 4 years for me. And in that time, I learned to be a doctor, truly listen to people, and treat with many modalities. So we learned to treat with botanical medicine, Chinese medicine, which includes acupuncture and treating meridians and energy field that way. We learned nutrition, how to heal with food. We learned botanicals, how to heal with plants. And botanicals use plants that are, that are very healing, but it's the actual plant that is used. So it often heals the physical body, but not the energetic body. And then I learned in my second year, I learned about it in my first year, but I really fell in love with it in my second year when I went to India. I learned about homeopathy. And to me, homeopathy, I was like so excited because it was energetic medicine. And it healed on a deeper level. It healed on the energetic level. So I became passionate about it. In my second year, I went to India and studied with some of the best homeopaths in the world. And I was very fortunate. I had a mentor at my college, the Canadian College of Naturopathic Medicine, Nadia Bakir, who would take us to India and expose us to the best homeopaths in the world. And we got to see case after case healed with this wonderful medicine. Often when allopathic medicine, couldn't do anymore, or, had hit, there was, no healing happening. But homeopathy would go in and heal. So the fact that it was healing on an energetic field and healing at a very deep level. In fact, healing in a mental, emotional level, but even deeper than that, on a subconscious level. And treating with something from the world that was diluted and succussed so that it became energetic medicine. And also being natural, as in made by things that exist on Earth. And I found all of this very fascinating, and it resonated with me profoundly. And so I went on after my naturopathic degree to study homeopathy alone. And I spent another 2 years studying homeopathy. And in that time, I could delve completely into homeopathy, learn all about every remedy. And it wasn't even like studying. It resonated with me so powerfully that it was more joyful than anything else. And since then, I went on and studied whenever I can with the great homeopaths that walk this earth and have changed this medicine and cured so many people. And I've, in my own practice, have seen so many cases and people's lives changed by this incredible, incredible medicine. So let me explain what homeopathy is, and then we'll go from there. So homeopathy is a system of medicine that was created by Samuel Hahnemann in the 1700s. He actually discovered homeopathy a little bit by accident. He was a doctor at the time, and he believed that we were poisoning people, not helping them with some of the cures that were around at the time. So he believed there was a better way to help people. And he was experimenting with chinchoa bark. And what happened was, I think he was taking it himself, and he noticed that the symptoms that came forward were a lot like malaria symptoms. So what he did, after some time, he thought, I wonder if you gave this medicine, chinchoa, that gave you the symptoms when you're healthy of malaria, what would happen if you gave the same medicine to someone that had malaria? And the result was that it actually cured it. So thus was born the system of medicine that is called homeopathy, that treats like with like. So as a homeopath, and what we're taught is that the whole being has to be looked at in order to find the medicine that is curative. So it's not that you look at, for instance, someone's sore toe, and from that sore toe you can see the rest of who they are as a person. Instead, a homeopath looks at every physical symptom. And not only every physical symptom, but the exact way that that individual expresses that symptom. So it's very individual to each person. In fact, one person will come down with a common cold and it'll express itself completely different from someone else. One person could, start with a cough that is and a sore throat, and another person could start with a fever and a headache, all from the same virus. So it's believed that we express our illnesses individually and uniquely, And as a homeopath, we listen to that, but we also look at everything else that is going on in the body, every physical symptom. So someone might have asthma, they might have migraines, they might have joint pain. And you would go into each of those because you would believe that it's not one single thing that's happening on the energetic field. It's that what's going on in the energetic field is causing each of the manifestations in the body. So you always look at the whole person and everything that's going on, which is so different from, you know, medicine that treats joint pain with one single medicine, and often, you know, treats it in a way to push down the symptoms rather than cure the symptoms. So homeopathy looks at the whole person, every physical symptom, and how the individual is expressing the pain that they're feeling. And that is a unique expression, as I explained before, for everyone. So we listen not only with our ears, but our heart. And we listen for up to 2 hours of everything about that person, whether, you know, they were abused as a child, or they had trauma when they were being born, or their parents split up at an early age, or you know, they had pneumonia when they were 3. All these things are very important to finding a remedy that helps the physical symptoms that are appearing much further down the road. So that's where I believe the subconscious comes in, because the subconscious remembers everything. It stores every little memory and every trauma that happens to us, and it stores it in a place that, you know, allows us to react, but it never forgets anything that happens. And later on, you know, we've learned to cope, and we've learned to become, you know, balanced and amazing adults, but all these subconscious beliefs are still there. And, you know, at times we get triggered or we get sick because we've just had too much happen to us. And that's when the illnesses come out. So a homeopath listens with all their ears and listens for the very subtle things that are happening in the body. They are very strange, rare, and peculiar for that individual. And that tends to lead us to the remedy that will cure not just this one symptom, but usually many symptoms. Not always will one remedy cure everything. Sometimes, you know, we're like an onion in that we need, you know, a follow-up remedy a few months down the road, but you can see profound healing from one remedy because it treats the whole person. So all of this I find very fascinating. And then it treats with a medicine that, like I said, is taken from something that exists in the world. And this medicine is reduced and percussed. So let's say you're taking the remedy Daisy, which is Bellus perennis, and you know, you take one petal from that plant, and it's ground down and applied into a liquid, and then that is reduced and succussed until it's the point of what allopaths say is non-existent. But what scientists are starting to see and prove today is that as something is taken and reduced and succussed with this exact way that Hahnemann developed, it actually becomes more potent, and it actually clusters in a way that something in a crude form doesn't. So we're starting to see that it does actually exist, and that this clustering and this energetic component is what heals us, but not only on a physical level, on this subconscious energetic level. So this is very exciting. I mean, it's something that always resonated with me and made complete sense, and is why I fell in love with homeopathy. But you know, the fact that they're actually starting to figure out why it works is very exciting. Hahnemann said, it doesn't matter how it works. That's not what matters. It's if it works. And I've always believed that. And I've seen many, many cases cured with this remedy. So it has never, you know, I find it curious, and I'm always looking into new science and how homeopathy is being proven. But to me, it's learning to play, to use homeopathy well. And I say to my patients, I am so excited about it that it's like learning to play the violin. You know, becoming a master at playing the violin is how I learned to listen, and get the subconscious to expose itself, so that I know where the healing needs to be. And I know what remedy to apply, and it's like cures like form. So this is what excites me. And homeopathy is different too in the way we give a remedy. We always give the potency that matches the person, and we give the smallest amount that is needed, which is so different from allopathic medicine, and what I always have to explain to my patients as much as I can. Because often we only give 2 pellets 2 nights in a row, and then you see how much that will affect the vital force, and then you redose according to that. So it's, if someone sees a very curative reaction, and then they have the symptoms come back, you know, a week later, 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, that's when you redose. But you don't continually give the remedy. So that's also very different. So when I mention vital force, just what is our vital force? And that's where homeopaths believe that they're treating. They're making the vital force stronger by removing the subconscious or the pain at a very deep level. By removing it, they're allowing the vital force to flourish, and then it does the healing. We believe that human beings can heal, that we're far more knowing, and that if allowed, that this vital force will come into play and do the healing, and that anything can be healed. So it's a very different way of thinking. So there's many programs that affect the vital force. And like I said, they can be from a very young age. And often that's when programs are introduced. I mean, let me give an example of a program. And I'll use myself because, you know, I don't want to bring patients into the mix too much unless I know they'd be happy to share. I'll start with a very simple one that homeopathy worked for me, and it has worked countless times. Last night I was feeding one of my horses, and she has a cold, so I've been treating her with homeopathy. And I was down looking in her bowl with her as she was eating it, you know, lovingly touching her cheek. But I went to stand up, and I knocked my nose on the stall door, and it brought tears to my eyes. And I'm like, oh no, I'm gonna have a black eye tomorrow. So I ran to my kit, and I got the remedy arnica, which is a beautiful remedy for any trauma and bruising, and you know, anything that can happen. It can be used in car accidents, you know, falling and injuring your ankle, falling off your bike, like concussion, any trauma. So I ran and I coated my nose with arnica and took 2 pellets. And this morning I wake up and there's no bruising. I have no sign that it even happened. And it really hurt in the moment. Another quick example, and I'm trying to give examples of homeopathic remedies that you could go out and try. You can use these because they're very valuable in an acute situation. I'll share another example that's more of a chronic, deeper way of taking a case. And that heals on the subconscious level, but so do acutes. And acutes are one of the ways that we often find a remedy, because someone will come down with something very serious in the moment, and it'll clearly show the remedy picture that will be very healing on a deeper level. On the weekend, my horses were being transported to a clinic, and there was a mare and a boy horse, a gelding, and she decided to use him as a chew toy on the way, and she bit him all over his neck. He had like 20 bites, and then he had reared up and slashed his eye and cut the top of his head, and she had decided to kick the back of the trailer and cut, you know, a big slash in her back hind leg, and we got there and there was blood everywhere. We were traumatized, they were traumatized, and I mean, I had forgotten my arnica, but I knew as soon as I get home, first thing I'll do is give at least 3 doses of arnica to both of them. And we arrived back the next day, and neither of them had any swelling. Usually, like a cut like that would blow up the size of a baseball. And even the people there were like, that's incredible. Like, if that was my horse, the joint would be blown up and the eye would be swollen closed, and, you know, they wouldn't be able to go back to the clinic. And I explained, well, do you know about arnica? So I had given them each about 4 doses over the evening, and it had profound effects. They had no swelling, no lameness, and they were good to go. So an incredible remedy. So arnica you can buy in pellet forms and at a good health food store, and you can also get it in a gel. So I had smeared it on my nose the night before. You can apply it, you know, around, if a wound is open, you want to put it around the wound and take the pellets. So it's an amazing remedy. Another remedy that's very good to know about is belladonna. It's used acutely in fevers and often for children. And this will help explain how homeopathy works on the vital force. So let's say a child had a fever and it had been going on for several days, and their vital force wasn't strong enough because of something going on the subconscious level to mount a fever that was strong enough to kill the virus. But fevers are good. You want a good, strong fever. It does its job, and it burns off what needs to be burned off, and it does it through heat. So this is another subject, but naturopathic doctors and homeopaths believe fevers are good. Now you want to watch the fever, make sure there's nothing, you know, no convulsions, but usually a child can handle a very high fever. But what happens with the remedy, say belladonna, if it matched the individual, and homeopathy needs to match. It's like a lock and key. So if you don't look at the whole person, if you don't look at the symptoms and how they're being expressed in the individual completely, you can give the wrong remedy. And it's like putting a key in a lock. It won't turn the lock. Nothing happens. So you need to make sure that it's fitting the individual on every level. So belladonna would appear, you know, with a high fever, and they would have the pupils are often dilated, and there'll just be like throbbing going on, a lot of heat. And what happens when you give the remedy belladonna is it's treating the subconscious level at a cures-like place. So it's removing the problem on a very deep level. And then the vital force kicks in, and it becomes much stronger. And what happens is the fever actually gets higher. It goes up. And this is a great reaction. It means that the vital force is kicking in and the body is reacting. And you see the fever go up, but for only a short period of time. That's all it needs. It burns off the virus, the child has a sleep, and then they wake up much better. And I've seen this happen time and time again. So an incredible remedy for fevers. But the interesting quality about belladonna is it comes from the nightshade family. It's known as deadly nightshade. So it's a plant, and if you eat the leaves in a crude form, it would be a poison. But because it's reduced to the point of energy, it can do no harm. But the whole nightshade family has this feeling of being left alone in the wilderness. Like a baby that's left alone in a forest by themselves. And imagine how many babies come into this world and get left feeling like they're alone. There's incubators, babies are torn from the mother's breast at a really young age. Many reasons why, a baby would get separated. And they could even only feel like that if they're put in a crib for a few hours when they're just small. So this subconscious, belief can be there from a very young age. And that is the subconscious core belief that you would be working on with belladonna. In children that can express themselves in dreams, you also see nightmares, like often really strong nightmares, night terrors. And again, that's the subconscious speaking about this inner fear. So an incredible remedy to treat that, and to treat night terrors in general, if the remedy matches. And again, this is why it's important to go to a good homeopath and let them listen to you, for an hour or 2 hours, because once you start getting in tune with, your inner sensations, and the inner sensations are simply a mirror of what's going on in the subconscious. And they also, what's going on in the subconscious is what creates the physical expression. So all of this, needs to be listened to. And often when I'm taking a case, the first half hour, 40 minutes is just getting people to, become aware of these inner sensations that we don't get asked about. Our deepest fears, our dreams, our tendencies, they're all expressions. And getting deep inside and expressing what pain you're feeling is a very new thing to do. When I ask people what does that pain feel like, they're often 5 minutes of silence. They're like, no one has asked me this. But it's so important for me to understand exactly how they're expressing the pain, not how I would express the pain. If it's my expression, then I'm giving myself my remedy, not theirs. So I need to understand it as if I was them. And the expression can be throbbing, it can be like heat, it can be like fire, it can be like knives, it can be, and it's different for everyone. And that could just be the expression of a joint pain. And again, you want to look into all the pain. And they all express very similarly. And even in the expression, healing starts, because you're getting in touch with the subconscious mind. So healing can even start just from starting to see the subconscious. It's like I said, it remains very hidden. It's very separated from our conscious mind. It remembers everything. It's programmed by everything. So it's important to listen on that level. So now I'm going to just express another remedy that goes a little bit deeper. So a homeopath. So the first two examples are acute, and you can use homeopathy in that way. But the deep, and belladonna is starting to go into healing on a subconscious level when the remedy matches. But when we take a case, it's like we call it constitutional prescribing, or prescribing for the individual a remedy that matches them in every way, in every aspect, and that remedy will help them heal on every level. Every physical level, mental, emotional level, energetic level, subconscious. So it starts on the subconscious. A very interesting example is a remedy that I've taken. I've had to take it 2 or 3 times in my life. When I was young, I grew up in a very small town, and my grandparents were dominant in that town. And my mother created a business that was very successful, and my grandfather wanted to take over the business, and she wouldn't let him. Because it was her idea. She had grown it. She was very passionate about it, and she was willing to share, but she didn't want him to take over. And I mean, that's her way of expressing in this world. But what happened in this very small town was my grandfather became very angry, and he had a lot of influence in the town. So what he did was he made it very difficult for my mother, and where she was living, what she was doing, and her business. And he, you know, and this is why the remedy was so healing for me. Through her eyes and through what I experienced, I felt the people in the town shut me out, and I became an outsider in a very small town. So the feeling was that I had been excluded. I had been pushed out. And in my 20s, by then, I had completely forgiven everyone in the town. I had no negative feelings. People were very kind to me. There was, you know, none of that left. I mean, so it was interesting that I came down with a serious case of hemorrhoids. And I just healed another patient with the exact similar scenario. It was in her own family that she felt pushed out. So I actually didn't know the first time, I didn't know anything about homeopathy the first time I got this case of hemorrhoids. And it was painful. And what had happened was I was triggered. Something had happened in my life that triggered the feeling of being pushed out. But it was like a small thing that happened with a friend. It wasn't anything that major, but it had triggered my subconscious mind to react in an emotional way that was, you know, out of fear. The subconscious mind triggers the emotions, and they will make no sense. As an adult, we're like, but I've already forgiven. I'm already way past that. But the subconscious mind remembers everything. So it will trigger you to react in a way, and it triggers the physical symptoms. So when I was 21, I knew nothing about homeopathy. I hadn't discovered it yet. So I actually, after about 2 weeks, had to go to the doctor and get a med that helped, and it resolved. And it wasn't until I had gone to school to study as a naturopath, as a homeopath. So several years later, I had another event that triggered the same thing to happen. And the hemorrhoids came back. But this time, I recognized what was going on in me, and I knew the remedy, the group of remedies. It's a plant, and the remedy is aloe. And in this plant family, and it's so interesting that plants actually express similarly to us. And they learn this through provings and through cured cases over time, and how people express. So I find that incredible. There's something on earth that matches how we're feeling inside. And it's a plant, an animal, a tree, or a mineral. And those are the things that homeopathy is made of. There's some 3,000 remedies now that have been proven and have helped clinically treat certain symptoms. Say, for example, aloe, when it was first being discovered, is patients would, or people would take this remedy that were very healthy, that they had nothing going on. And they do what they call a proving to find out how this remedy will help others. And what happens is a set of symptoms start to appear in the person, and they express these symptoms. And then the homeopath knows that they could treat with this remedy something that is similar. So that's how the remedy starts, how we start to know that, you know, where it can be used clinically and how it can help. But over time, like some remedies have been around for close to 200 years. So they've learned more and more by using them clinically how they can help. So now at this point, I knew to take the remedy aloe, because the whole family has the feeling that they're being pushed out by the group. So basically pushed out of the group, and then you feel isolated and you know, whatever comes with that, sadness, grief. So I took the remedy aloe, and my hemorrhoids disappeared almost magically. I would say within an hour to 2 hours. And I had to repeat the remedy possibly the next day because there was some slight residual feeling left. But I was 100% better very quickly with, you know, not having to go to any other form of medicine. And not only had I healed on a physical level, but I had healed on a subconscious level. And the subconscious is also, it remembers everything, but it needs to have reminders. Like you need to develop a new pattern in order to change completely. So I do find that we need to be redosed over time. And, you know, if something similar happens, sometimes the symptoms will come back, often not as strong, often weaker each time, and often much further apart each time. So that's an incredible personal example of a remedy. And I have countless such examples. I'm using myself as another beautiful remedy that has been really good for me, and I think it's healed the same wound, possibly even deeper. It's a remedy, Bellus perennis, and it's daisy, and the feeling is bruised inside. And I think that the pain that I experienced as a young child left me bruised emotionally. And when I go deep, that's the feeling in my heart, that my heart is bruised and tight. And Bellus perennis has helped me a great deal with that. Remedies that help for the whole birthing process are in the calcium series, and they're like on the first line of the periodic table. So the whole periodic table has been proven and understood, and a lot of work has come from that by many great homeopaths. Scholten did all of that work from his experience in clinic and from countless cases. So now that, like, many mineral remedies are easy to use and understood. Many plants and animal remedies as well. 1 second. And what's beautiful about homeopathy is you can use 1 drop of a substance and make thousands of a remedy, because that 1 drop has the essence of the plant, the animal, or the mineral. So it's very cost effective. And unfortunately, I feel this is one of the reasons that it has been neglected by allopathic medicine, in that, like, when I take a case, it takes an hour to 2 hours. That's where the effort and the time goes in, and the truly listening. But the actual medicine costs $5, and it's so curative. So, you know, it's very cost effective, and the remedy can be taken and be repeated many more times. So no harm is done. The environment isn't affected, and it's at very low cost. And even with an animal, all you need is 1 drop of blood, or milk remedies from animals come from 1 drop of the mother's milk. So it's beautiful that way, causing no harm to Mother Earth or the beautiful things that are curing. I wonder what I'm talking about that's making me cough. It's my deep love for homeopathy, I think. So, yes, so the subconscious mind, is elusive. It has learned everything that we've ever been exposed to since the time we were in the womb, to our birthing process, to our very young days. It's programmed. It remembers reactions that we've had or things that have been said to us. Imagine the programs that start when you're very young. Imagine when you're even a baby. This, you know, maybe the belief that you're not beautiful. Maybe someone said, "Oh, what an ugly baby," you know, because babies aren't always that beautiful. But the subconscious mind stores that. So for years, you know, we're dealing with, I'm not beautiful. And imagine the programs as we grow up that are involved in, you know, beauty as being something that models, you know, look like and are skinny, and most people aren't what is perceived to be beautiful. And then, you know, from a very young age, we can be, that program can be amplified by kids at school saying something mean, and you know, our very first reactions to a boy that doesn't find us beautiful, and we believe this inner program. And it could happen, it could start at, you know, a very young age. We're actually programmed from the time we're born to the time we are 7. So everything that's said to us gets stored in the subconscious, and we believe it on some level. So yeah, I mean, inner beauty, inner love are, you know, the cornerstone to true health. And I feel as you remove these subconscious programs and beliefs, true health and true joy and true love of who we are can flourish. And then we're able to live in the now, and everything starts to heal on a physical level. And we heal on a subconscious level, on an energetic level. And I mean, when I give a remedy, I can tell when someone walks back into my office if they're different. They're just of a different light, a different vitality. You know, those programs have been removed. And imagine the programs that are there about health that aren't just not true, that we can't be healed, that we are not ultimately healing. Those alone create havoc in our healing ability, and they can be very strong. And they can stop you from healing them. They can stop you from even going to a homeopath. You could, you know, go your whole life believing that something outside of you is going to heal you. Something outside of you is going to love you. When we need to just love ourselves and come from that place. Yeah, imagine the programs that are there that tell us that you have to get healing from outside of yourself, and that you're not capable of healing yourself, or that you're not great enough. These are all things that need to be healed. So I'm going to bring my colleagues in now and see if they have some questions for me. Lovely ladies, if you could just introduce yourselves.
Hello, this is Juliet. Oh, I don't know what's going on here. Hang on.
Danielle,
I think, are you on? I think. Okay,
Danielle,
you can hear?
hear. Yeah,
Danielle, I think, are you unmuted?
I think I'm unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yeah, perfect.
There we go. Also, there we go. Cat's out of the hat. I'm Danielle.
That was a beautiful. That was a beautiful talk that you gave. Really lovely.
Thank you.
And one of the stories you were talking about the fever was really interesting, because I remember when my oldest boy was, I think he was about 2, and he had really, really high temperature. And what happened was I was freaking out a bit because it got really high, and I'd tried everything and nothing was working. And a friend happened to call at that moment who was a homeopath, and he said, give him aconite 1 every 15 minutes for the next hour and a half. And I was like, okay, I don't have any aconite. I had my whole kit, but that had run out. So a friend ran from around the corner, ran down with some aconite, And I gave it to Samuel, and it was amazing because his eyes were literally like rolling back in his head at the time. He was limp, and it was like, oh God. Gave it to him. Within 15 minutes of him having it, if even that long, his eyes opened and he became alert, and the fever completely went. And he switched from being someone that looked so ill and sick to completely vibrant and healthy within literally 15 minutes.
Yeah, that's how quickly it can work when the remedy matches. And aconite's a beautiful remedy to mention right now for colds and flus. Often given, even in the first stages, it will abort the cold. But like you say, he was in a very serious state, and it helped immensely. But aconite often matches if there's been shock, and it can even be just from cold wind or something cold or something that's, you know, shocked our system. It can be used after, you say, someone was in a car accident and had a lot of shock, and then they became seriously sick after that. But aconite used at the beginning of colds and flus can be very helpful. And yeah, it's one of the best remedies to mention right now. Thank you, Juliet.
One of the things that I loved about what you were talking about was the importance of understanding how connected we are with our, you know, not just our physical state, but our subconscious state with plants, and how that reflection is there in nature. It got me thinking when you were talking about a situation that I had where I was doing plant medicine, and I was using a particular plant, and this was in Peru, in the interior of the Amazon. And the plant was being used for me because I had had very, very intense back problems, great pain. So they were giving me a plant called Chitixinango, which is used traditionally for arthritis and stiffness of joints. And I was being told that as I was working with this plant, that it would affect me not just physically, and the effect that I had initially was huge fevers that would start in my joints and move through. But the other thing that would happen is that I would need to work with the plant in understanding that the plant would be teaching me in other ways. And they talked about it to the way of, you know, you would go into this incredible fear. You would have these visuals, mostly with the fevers and the hallucinations that would come because of these intense fevers. You'd be faced with a huge fear, and that you'd need to just, literally the words that they gave me were, flip the channel, change the channel. And what I noticed was that in working with Chitixinango, not only did it take away all of my back pain for over a year, but it also taught me how to stay fluid, how to stay flexible in my thoughts, which is directly related to that sense of being stiff and not being able to move. So I love this notion of how when we look to our natural world, when we look to the plants around us, they can inform us so much, not just in how to heal our physical state, but to very much shift the way that we perceive and the way that we think. And I wonder, for you as you're talking, because homeopathy is so beautiful in its simplicity. You know, that notion that after spending an hour, hour and a half with someone like yourself, the doses are minimal and the effects are huge. Now that's kind of the reverse of the way that we think with allopathic medicine. But may I ask, if with homeopathic remedies, what is my responsibility in taking them and shifting my perspective? Do I need to work that hard on it, or is it just knowing that the right dose is really going to make that kind of an effect? It'll have that profound healing also on my perspective and my thoughts. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, it's very simple. There's almost no active reaction needed, and because it works on that subtle subconscious belief system that's a mirror of what's going. It mirrors the physical, mirrors the subconscious mirrors the physical. But when you work on that level, it's like cures like. It removes it, it plucks it out, and healing just happens.
I love that.
But, yeah, and you notice it when it's gone. Like you've lived with it all your life. It's always been part of you, but you really notice the change when it's gone.
What I love also is this notion of really going into the feeling, like as you were saying, what does the pain feel like? You know, and really working with it and connecting into it in that deeper way. This to me is profound.
Yeah, not only like, because as you connect to it, you're expressing your individual way of expressing the disease, but at the same time, that individual expression is revealing the remedy that's needed, because it's the way, it's that individual expression that gets matched to the remedy. So and it's not an easy thing to do. I find patients, you know, they struggle with it for a few minutes until I guide them into what they, you know, need to express. And then it can just be a word or two. It can just be, it feels like fire, you know, and it often just comes out of nowhere, the expression of how it feels. But yeah, very, very little active reaction needs to happen in the conscious mind.
I think it's such a beautiful gift that you give to people by sitting there and taking that time with them to allow their truth, allow the subconscious to come through. And, you know, as you sit there and you hold the space for them, and you kind of, you're looking into that deeper side so that you can really guide them how they can unfold this stuff that is just stuck. You know, I think that's a really, really beautiful thing as you were describing it.
Yeah, it's stuck and hidden.
Yeah, it's quite a gift that you can support them in that journey. And then not just you supporting them, but then the plant supporting that deeper unfolding and allowing their body to suddenly re-resonate in the right vibration that they need to find.
Exactly. Well said, Julia. And I mean, I've met many homeopaths, and they all come from this beautiful place of heart, and have this profound ability to listen and sit with someone. And many, many times I've had people leave saying no one has ever listened to them at that level. And with that expression, healing comes, like I said, just in the glimpses that come in the subconscious, healing starts.
Well, I think that's such a beautiful thing, isn't it? I think that's such an important thing for people, is just to be heard. Because so often in our lives, we don't get a chance to really speak from our depths, from our soul. A lot of people don't, you know, that truth really being revealed, because we feel that people would judge us or whatever it may be, or that they'll feed and react off of what we're saying. So to have the space where we can actually just be and talk, I think quite often you were saying that when, you know, sometimes it's just allowing that subconscious to come through that starts the healing anyway.
Yeah,
you know,
I completely agree too. The presence, right? It's being present. And certainly as someone who's sat with wonderful homeopaths, I really feel that the healing begins there, because someone is hearing me, and you're creating this space so that I can bring forth what it is that needs to be healed. I really believe that that's an essential part. And certainly the remedies, but the unraveling of it, right?
Yeah, and there are other ways of healing the subconscious. Like you both do beautiful things that do something very similar. It's my tool. It's just my tool and homeopath's tool, and it's a beautiful tool. But what are we told, you know, when we're sick? We're told, get over it, get over yourself, you know, just get better. And often the subconscious is crying, but I can't, you know, I can't get over it. It's like so part of who we are. And it's there as a coping mechanism. It's there to help us survive. So it's very powerful.
Jayne, may I ask, what would you say to somebody that's listening that hasn't tried homeopathy and they're dealing with some very debilitating disease, and they have allopathic medicine, which is telling them to go a certain way, and they want to try both? How would you marry allopathic medicine with homeopathic medicine? Because you're coming from different perspectives, but always medicine that's presented with love is compatible.
Yeah.
So what would you say to someone that is looking to, how can I do homeopathic along with the regime and the protocol that my Western doctor is telling me to do?
Yeah, so Western medicine will give a medicine, say the illness is asthma. They'll give a medicine that will allow the airways to open and the person to breathe. So it's fixing the symptom. But the real problem is that they feel they can't breathe on a subconscious level. So you get to that with homeopathy. But usually with that kind of illness, I say, keep your allopathic medicine close in case you need it. But let's start to work on that subconscious level, and eventually you won't need the allopathic medicine. But it's, and most homeopaths are very cautious not to throw out, something that's keeping the person sustained and alive as we work on that deeper level.
And do taking homeopathic remedies interfere in any way with, say, antidepressant medication, things like this?
No, they don't interfere at all. Often the meds interfere with homeopathy a little. So, I mean, the best case is someone that is clean of allopathic medicines, because they do antidote homeopathy somewhat, because they're, much, they vibrate at a much denser level. But they don't cause harm to the medicine, so they don't create a problem or make the medicine more potent or anything like that. Now in the case of diabetes, often you have to watch your blood sugars, because if you're taking a medicine or a high blood pressure remedy, what happens is it starts to work and the amount of medicine you need becomes less. So you can cause sudden low blood pressure or sudden very low blood sugar. So you have to really monitor what you're, how you're reacting, and adjust the allopathic medicine accordingly. So, reduce meds if needed. That's pretty cool.
I'm just sitting here absorbing it all. I love it. And I've been treated by you, and I'm so grateful for that. It's very hard for some people to wrap their head around the fact that these little ampoules, these little pellets, can make such a radical, instantaneous difference, especially with babies, and as you're saying, fevers and colds. And it's, to me, I love it. And it's, as you said, it's incredibly affordable, and it's available at any good health food store. It's right there.
It's funny, my little ones, especially my youngest, we've always had the kits, the kind of 48 remedy kit in the house. And what I always loved is that both of my children would go up to the kit and they would just grab a remedy. And I always trusted it, because I know that if you take the wrong remedy, it's not going to do you any harm. So it's not like it's something dangerous that they're taking, like paracetamol or something. So I always trusted that actually their body was calling them to that energy for some reason. And I would look it up afterwards, and it would always match on some level what was going on with them. So I think it's, even if you don't know the names of the remedies or how they work, we can intuitively tune into the vibration that is within that medicine. And, it can be such a powerful healer.
Yeah, it's incredible. And I feel kids are very intuitive, and they react so well to homeopathy. Kids, horses, pets, because their vital force is strong in general, and they haven't had too many programs. So they'll react to something even like close, and they'll get what they need from the remedy. And I find mothers are very, and parents in general are very in touch with their children. Small children, sometimes I find it hard to find a remedy, but what I'll do is take the mother's case, and what she needs will be resonating with what the child needs, and often it's curative.
Well, the mother and the baby are so linked, aren't they? For the first year of their life, there's such a strong bond. And I think it's up to 6 months that the baby is actually still just fully in the mother's auric field, and that the two are still one. So that makes a lot of sense that the mother's remedy would reflect what the baby needs.
Yeah, and they're carrying everything that the mother dealt with when she was, you know, pregnant, and they're in tune with all of her, and they carry all of her emotional stuff. So it's very curative for even the child, and at the same time for the mother. Because like we were talking about before, and I find this fascinating, when you give someone a remedy, not only you change, but all the people around you change. And that's because you're now viewing the world differently, and so they're different.
And I guess your interaction with them would be so different anyway, because you, as your vibration shifts, you attract different things to you, because like vibrates with like. It's like the tuning forks, isn't it? If you bring different tuning forks together, they start to resonate together, don't they? And so it's the same with the homeopathy. If you give a remedy to a child or to someone, then that vibration will affect all of those within its ripple.
Yes.
This is the beauty of all energetic medicine, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So when I took my remedy of aloe, it probably had profound effects on my whole family.
Such an amazing subject, it really is, and something that I think, you know, we could explore for hours and hours and hours. It's such, you know, it's really the depth of all nature, isn't it? Because we're just talking about vibration, which is what sound comes down to, Danielle, which is what you do, homeopathy, what nutrition is. It's all vibration, because ultimately there is nothing more than that on this planet but vibration. And so it's just that it's these different tools, isn't it, to realign the vibrational strands within our body.
Yes, and again, what we were talking to before, how interconnected everything is. Everything on the planet, us to each other, us to the universe. It's fascinating.
One of the greatest comforts that I find, and also a responsibility, is the realization that everything that we experience as a dis-ease has a natural healing here that already exists in our world. There is a formula of healing that already exists for every ailment that we have. It's here on Mother Earth. And so this is why, to me, it's coming out of that whole notion of seeing yourself as an individual, a separate, alone, and really starting to understand the interconnectedness. You know, how we are so interconnected, and that plants, we have everything that we need in order to be able to heal and to cure whatever it is that ails us in a natural form. That is incredibly comforting, and at the same time, you know, it's that call of action too, to honor it, right? To work with it and to share that wisdom. So I love that you sit and, you know, I could listen to you talk about homeopathy, and I'd love to see, say, your first aid kit, so to speak. Maybe we need to do another one of these where Jayne, you bring out your first aid kit and what you would recommend for us all to have in our home.
Totally, I think that's a great idea.
That I would love that. Like, it's even when you experience it on an acute level, like you did with aconite and high fever. Yeah, when you see the reaction there, then you're like, oh, well, there's a possibility that it could heal me on a deeper level. So I would love to do that.
Okay, so to be continued.
Yeah.
To be continued. And my remedy kit's about now 500 remedies.
So maybe it's to be continued in a series.
Part one of a series. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It was so lovely getting together with you guys each week for this time. I think it's such a special time to be able to each share our joy and our passion.
Very grateful.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Jayne.
Thank you, Jayne.
Thank you,
Definitely.
girls. Thank